because it's not providing protection for women if they're continually going missing right under the noses of the Vancouver Police Department.
There's also the question of police themselves posing a threat to women. The organization Justice for Girls in 1995 quoted a report to the federal government citing that there was 4 convictions in 6 years of extreme acts of violence against women in sex trade work by police. And as you know, there is very little investigation often into crimes committed by police officers on the job. And so you can imagine that these 4 cases that actually did surface are probably a tiny minority of the overall cases of violence against women by police.
The issue of these 59 missing women in particular, missing and many of them now found murdered, is also caused, the lack of security that they faced in their lives, many of whom are no longer alive, is also caused by the extreme poverty that more and more women are facing in the east side of Vancouver and in BC in general, which has increased a lot in the last 7 years, specifically because of the policies that have been enacted by the BC Liberal government, which have reduced a lot of the services and safeguards that women used to be able to rely on for their safety and security as well as their well-being. Some of these things are very, very clearly targeting the women portion of the population of this province. And so I will give some of the examples of those, which are very, very shocking, what the BC Liberals have done in the last 7 years, and also help very much to show that the problem of missing women and lack of security for women is related by the policies that they've created that have increased women's likelihood of being in poverty. Currently, as people know, if you look anywhere in the media, it's very much highlighted that housing in Vancouver is becoming increasingly expensive. The cost of housing in the province of BC, and especially Vancouver, is the highest than anywhere else in Canada. Now, for women in particular to be able to afford housing, we have to look at what their situation is for employment, wages, and then also things that are important to women, such as childcare. All of these things have also been pushed back so that women are in less of a position to make enough money to pay for housing, and then also so that women face more and more difficulties being able to pay for childcare and other expenses so that they could work and pay for housing. In the last 7 years, the BC Liberals have cut very important agencies and bodies that very much affect women. They cut BC's legislation for pay equity, which is the equality between the pay for women's work and men's work, to make sure that women and men would be paid the same for the same work. They removed this from legislation in BC, as well as they removed and dismantled the Ministry of Women's Equality, which the mandate of which was to increase the diversity and equality of women in this province. They also removed the clause or stipulation of the BC Human Rights Code that says that pay equity is a human right for people living in British Columbia. And following that, they also dismantled the BC Human Rights Commission, which is one of the only bodies that citizens have access to, which is specifically charged with stopping and ending cases of discrimination against people. Currently, in Canada as a whole, women still make only 70.5 cents for every dollar that men make. So even the attacks that the BC Liberal government and provincial government has made on pay equity is very significant because women are still not making the same amount of money for the same work. In particular, they have also made many attacks on jobs specifically that are dominated by women. So jobs that are considered good jobs, where women made more than average than other women, are not minimum wage or low-paying jobs, such as work in healthcare as well as teaching. And the Hospital Employees Union, as well as the BC Teachers Federation, are two of the biggest unions, and also the unions and professions mostly dominated by women, that have had the biggest and longest labor struggles of the BC government in the last several years. And also both of those labor struggles resulted in the rolling back of wages and job security, as well as the rights of those workers in both of those cases. And so the targeting of women's ability to make enough money to survive extends even to women unionized workers as well. Also cut 100% of the funding for all women's centers, which was 37 women's centers in British Columbia in 2004, which forced most of them to close their doors as they did not have funding independent of the government. And women's centers, just like the Downtown East Side Women's Center, which is a very, very highly used and highly dependent on women's center, give a lot of support to women advocacy, as well as a safe place and shelter that women could go to if they're under threat or under attack or in danger. Right now, they're in the Downtown East Side and then also in British Columbia. There are currently no women's centers or shelters which are funded to be able to run 24 hours a day, which contributes to the situation where poor women in particular don't have access to the safety that could be provided by those if they end up homeless, if they are not able to make enough money to afford housing, which is increasing more and more over the last several years. And on top of that, the shelters that do exist in this city, there are none of them that are specifically for women. There are some where they are divided by gender, but they're all like co-ed shelters for homeless people. And many women report that they prefer to sleep in the streets or stay out all night rather than go to those shelters, because they also face violence against them in those shelters based on being women and being women in an insecure situation where they don't have protections for themselves. And finally as well, the shame of the provincial government in the last many years. While finally the investigation about missing women was ongoing, and they were finding, in the time period that they were finding more and more remains of women in Robert Picton's farm, and at the same time that more women were still being reported missing, they began to cut what was left of the affordable housing for people in the Downtown East Side, and specifically women. And so in the last several years, from 2003 to 2005, they closed 415 single-room occupancy spaces in that